Okay guys, so here we are. We're going to try and get through this and showcase all of the saws and what was done with them. So first up, here we go.
Zack Powell.
Zack Powell. Let's get a good look at it right there. And pause it right there. What Zack has done. Exhaust is at 102, transfers 120, intake 95. Squish is 30 thousandths. He JB welded in the transfers to taper them in a little bit, 8 to 10 degrees of timing advance. Velocity stack with a Chinese 62cc clone carburetor, custom muffler mod, an unlimited coil, highway pop-up piston. That's Zack Powell. Check out his YouTube channel. Next up,
Dub Saw Shop.
Dub Saw Shop. Take a look, see what he's done here. Okay, pause it there. He's got 96 on the exhaust, transfers at 118, intake is at 78 degrees. He had to do a base cut, made a pop-up piston, 30 thousandths inch pop-up piston, 9.5 degrees timing advance, 62cc Chinese HDA clone carburetor, intake partition machined or matched to the carb, 660 velocity stack with unifilter, triple port muffler. Okay, yeah, he's got 3 holes in there. And side gap on the plug due to the pop-up piston. All right, next up.
Tate Pazaski.
Tate Pazaski. Let's have a look at it here. Okay, pause it right there. Here's what Tate did. He says he's got a big bore kit, which I'm guessing it's just the 46 millimeter big bore. He probably started off with a 45 millimeter or something like that. Minor lower transfer work, upper transfer work. JB welded in the transfers to get a nice curve. Exhaust port raised, widened, and polished. Intake port is raised a little bit, or actually lowered probably. He doesn't have the numbers here. Doesn't have the actual numbers. He did do a timing advance, muffler mod. You see that nice muffler mod there. Got a pipe muffler on there. Carburetor mod with the butterfly and throttle shaft grounded down. Stock air filter modified for better flow. Crank connecting rod slightly lightened. Oh, really? Oh, okay. New piston and ring. Piston has a slight pop-up. And new fuel line and spark plug. There we go. Next up,
Eckard.
Ryan Eckard. Let's have a look at what he did here. Whoa, look at the hole in that muffler. Oh. Ryan Eckard, 51 cylinder and piston. So it's a 45 millimeter. Muffler mod. Exhaust is at 98 and widened. Transfers 116. Intake 80. Muffler mod, again, I say that. Let's see. 024 squish and a timing advance. Next up is Russell Cox.
Russell Cox.
Man, I can't find cut. That's what you call cut. I told you to watch him if you go down there in them damn woods down there because there was a couple.
Okay, Russell Cox. Let's see what he did. It's got a 55 Rancher cylinder. It's the factory Mall cylinder, and it's got the factory Zama carb on it. Highway piston. It's a pop-up highway dome piston. Let's see, port work. No numbers. Timing is advanced, and he ported it. He says transfers, he took a different approach. Grew up dirt track racing. where we had to run small 2-barrel carb, but was able to make tons of power because we made other components match. So I actually made the transfers smaller and flow more better instead of raising them and making them bigger. No matter how you look at it, this still 53cc air pump. So he didn't tell us exactly what he did, other than, you know, he ported it. And he has no clue. He says it right here. I have no clue what the intake or exhaust numbers are. So, but he somehow made the transfers smaller. My guess is he JB welded them. I don't know.
The damn armadillo holes down there.
Next up,
Robin Walter.
Robin Walter. Let's have a good look at it there. That pipe was a little bit long. I was having a hard time getting it in the wood, but we let it go. Let's see. Robin Walter is Triple S Performance Saws. Okay, Triple S Performance Saws. You can find him on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, all the platforms as Triple S Saws. 45 millimeter bore OEM cylinder with an aftermarket piston. JB welded the transfer walls, gas ported the piston, dimpled the piston, 99.5 on the exhaust, 116 on the transfers, and 78 on the intake with 21 thousandths squish. 20 thousandths was sanded out of the squish band, which means likely he also took the same or more off of the base. It says it's the first race saw build he's ever made. Most all the work done to this saw could be done without a lathe. So maybe he didn't do anything to the base. I don't know. Doesn't say. But there we go. Triple S Performance Saw, Robin Walter.
Richard Flagg.
Richard Flagg. Here we are.
Mine's 7, 8 years ago when they were racing. Some of them guys who were in the 3Q class were running the 346s.
All right, let's see what Richard did. Richard says he did no machine work whatsoever. It ended up with a 26 thousandth squish. If he did no machine work, I guess he just did a base gasket delete. That's my guess. Intake 78, transfers 126, and the exhaust is 100. He did do finger ports, and the finger ports open at 121, and he is running a 288 XP carburetor. That's a big boy right there. I think it's a HD5. I'm not, he sent it to me, but carburetor for a 288 XP is probably a better way of describing it. Next up,
Bama Performance.
Bama Performance. We're going to call this saw number 2. This is Nick English, and he had 2 saws. So we're calling this one right here saw number 2. I don't know if it is or not. You can't really tell much of a difference between the two of them. But yeah, again, it's saw number 2. Let's just call it saw number 2. Pop-up piston. Intake is at 82, exhaust is at 104, and transfers are 128. Has a stock carb, and he lightened the piston and gave it 8 degrees advanced timing.
Bama Performance.
Again with Bama Performance.
This is how it's made.
This is Nick English.
Like those actors.
And so we're calling this one saw number 1. They may or may not be in 1 or 2. It doesn't matter. What matters is how they run and everything. This one he built as a more wild build, right? And I don't have the info on it. So, but he still used just OEM stuff. He just did different things to the intake and transfers and all that stuff. But sadly, I don't have all the info at the time of doing this. It is what it is. That's why I was saying this turns out it's quite difficult to do this. So if people are sending numbers, it's always on different papers, and they have different ways of doing their numbers and stuff. So I'm doing the best that I can. We're going to call this one saw number 1, and we're going to call it the wild build, right? And I can't tell you how it performed compared to the other one because you guys have to make your guesses.
Madhouse.
The Madhouse saw. This is the Trailer Park 346 XP. All right. So Matt's info here. It's using a Husqvarna 350 44 millimeter open port cylinder. Has a Dolmar 111 piston, 357/359 intake carb mount, and all that jazz. You know, the whole intake carb and everything is from a 357, 359 is on here. He did no chamber work, just cut the base. Lots of porting. I ran it on Red Armor 41 just to try it and get the tune close, but it may need to be leaned out a bit, blah, blah, blah. And again, no numbers. But Husqvarna 350 cylinder, Dolmar 111 piston, 357/359 full intake is on this saw.
Dino Joe.
Dino Joe. Check it out. Look at that intake. Okay, stop it right there. Again, Joe did not give any numbers on his, but what I do know that he did was because I've watched his videos, just watch his videos on this and he'll tell you more about the saw. But he did, it's a Husqvarna 55 open port cylinder, I believe. All right. He has an aluminum intake block on there that's JB welded and bolted in place. He has finger ports, and the carburetor, I think, is a steel MS460 carburetor, I believe. But watch his video for more that he's done on this saw, and make your guesses according to the info that Joe provides on his YouTube channel. Next up,
Jared Hoath.
Jared Hoath. Have a look at it there. Got some different stuff going on with the carb and air filter.
Yeah, I like the hell out of that. I've got a couple.
All right. So what Jared did, he's got a 45 millimeter open port cylinder, 25,000 squish. Exhaust is at 100, transfers at 125, and intake is at 75. He used a 029 pop-up piston, Walbro HD5 carb, and timing advance.
Garrett Barker.
Okay, Garrett Barker. We're going to call this Garrett Barker Small. All right. This is the Garrett Barker Small build. This saw is going to be given away on the channel, and this is one of the saws that I sent to him to build, and it'll be giving away one of the prizes. Okay, it's a stock 45 millimeter cylinder, I believe. Could be a 46. Not 100% sure on that, but the squish is at 20 thousandths. Exhaust is at 102. Transfers are 126, and the intake is at 84. He has a 20 thousandths pop up on that piston, and base cut to set the squish at the 20 thousandths. So the carburetor and all the intake and everything is completely stock.
Garrett Barker.
And again, Garrett Barker. Now this one we're going to call it Garrett Barker Big. Check out that intake and carb. Cylinder looks a little different. All right. This is, again, Garrett Barker Big. Okay. He used a 34 millimeter 359 crank to go in this saw. So 34 millimeter 359 crankshaft. 50 millimeter 365 open port cylinder. So you could get the 365 cylinders. There's little ins and outs, differences between them, but some of the 365s had open port. I think that he used a Chinese cylinder on this, but it's the open port 365 50 millimeter cylinder. He had to do a lot of casework to get this to happen. It's got a timing advance. Exhaust is at 101, transfers at 128, it looks like. Could be 123. I think it's 128 though. Intake is at 96. Woo! And he's running a 372 intake and carburetor setup on this saw. So we're looking, that thing's, so at 50 millimeter and 44 millimeter stroke, that's going to be the same as like a 266 XP. So you're looking at 66 cc's, right? 66.7, I think it's exactly what it is. But anyways, next up.
Eric Elswick.
Eric Elswick. All right. What we have here is the intake is at 80. The transfers are at 117. The exhaust is at 100. 19,000 squish. It's running a 372 XP carburetor and 9.5 degrees of timing advance. Flat top piston. Flat top piston.
Super Dave.
Super Dave Hayward. Super Dave Outdoors. He took a very similar approach to what Matt House did. He's running a Husqvarna 350 cylinder and intake. The intake and carburetor from a 350. The piston is an 031 piston. He's running crank stuffers from a Husqvarna 345 brush cutter. He took 50 thousandths from the chamber, and I'm not sure if he had to do anything from the on the base or not, but intake is at 77, transfers at 117, and exhaust is at 100. That's Super Dave.
Curtis Snodgrass.
Curtis Snodgrass. All right, let's take a look at his numbers here. Intake is at 74, exhaust is at 101, and transfers 123. This is a OEM cylinder, I believe, but it's definitely not anything outside of the realm of normal for a Husqvarna 50, 51, or 55. I don't know which size it is. But intake 74, exhaust 101, transfers 123, and he has finger ports coming on at 120 and an 8-degree timing advance. That's Curtis Snodgrass.
Corey Knapp.
Corey Knapp. Okay, pause it right there. Looks like it's a pretty basic build. He did a timing advance. Don't know how much. Exhaust is at 101 and widened. Intake is at 79. Transfers at 121. Oh, okay. 46 millimeter, 55 open port cylinder. He has a MS290 piston, 20,000 squish, and a muffler mod.
Corey Cripps.
Now, Corey Cripps. 2 Coreys. Look at that intake. Look at that. That's pretty cool. That's pretty slick. And a monster of a muffler mod. Woo! All right, let's stop it right there. Here we go. Carburetor is a 199 from a 359 Husqvarna. Piston. Looks like he lightened it to 56 grams. It's a highway piston with an OEM ring. Cut 30 thousandths off of the crown. 4.5 degree at 4.5 degrees. So he cut the top of his piston with an angled cut. No pop-up. He just cut the crown at a 44.5 degree angle. He cut 30 thousandths off of it. And he cut the skirt for finger flow. Cylinder. It's a 46 millimeter 55 cylinder. He cut 95 thousandths off of the base. Whoa! Whoa! Cut 55 thousandths out of the chamber. And again at a 4.5 degree taper to match the piston. Super wide exhaust port, cut finger ports fed from transfers and crankcase. Intake is at 74, transfers 113, fingers 117. Exhaust is at 100. Timing advances at approximately 12 degrees. 28 thousandths plug gap. He said he had an air leak at the base twice. Spark plug thread pulled out of the cylinder the day he was going to ship it. Woo! Well, he got that fixed. And so that's it. Yeah, that's the numbers. Next up,
Corp.
Corey Corp. We all know Corey Corp. He's active on the Facebook groups and stuff. He's a real good guy. I've worked with. Ooh. Can you hear my dogs? Brr. All right. So, anyways, he calls this the budget built 55. He traded for a mostly complete 55. Used a $7 028 piston. 262 XP HDA 87 carb, pull and choke. Went through 4 different cylinders trying porting numbers. This one, after machine work, is just basic. Exhaust is 100, transfers 124, and intake is at 75. He did not lower the intake, only shaped and widened. Widened and raised exhaust, left transfers alone, top and bottom. Timing advance about 15 degrees at least is what he says. So those numbers, exhaust is 100, transfers 124, intake 75. With 15 degrees of advance, at least. All right, next up is
Smitty.
So Brian Smith. Smitty. Take a look at it. All right, pause it right there. The exhaust is at 99, the transfer is 124, and the intake is at 80. Compression was about 240 degrees on cylinder 1. Cylinder 2 is machined about the same, but not tested. It has finger ports. It has a 372 XP carb. Timing advanced 9.6 degrees. All details is on his channel, so look up Smitty's chainsaws. Smitty's chainsaws, I think is what it's called. But you probably know about Smitty's channel. All the links to everybody's channels, if they have them, will be in the description so you can find them. All right. So that's Smitty's build.
Brennan Cass.
Brennan Cass. Ooh, look at that. Look at that. What we're seeing is he's got a 2-piece cylinder head on there. Something different going on with the carburetor and stuff. Looks like he doesn't have a muffler mod, but I can tell you he does. Back up. Well, anyways, Brennan's, the way I'm doing this video, I kind of got to do it like this, guys. Sorry. With Brennan's saw, he has a Husqvarna 359 crankshaft. He has a, and I believe his is full circle on the crank. I believe it is. And he's running a 268 cylinder. It's an open port cylinder. He's using that and the 268 carb and everything. So that's Brennan's work. And boy, it looks so clean. It looks like a stock saw. It just straight up looks stock. Anyways, next up is
Boedy Pennington.
Boedy Pennington. That's me, Novice Lumberjack. Let's see what we did here. All right. Installed an 028 Super piston. It's a Husqvarna 55 cylinder, so it's 46 millimeter. 028 Super piston. Cut the squish to 20 thousandths. Intake is at 76.6. Exhaust is at 106.6. Oh, no. Those are not the ported numbers. Intake is at 80.4. Exhaust is at 96.5. And transfers is at 112. It has a timing advance of 10.8 degrees. And yeah, that's it. So that was my build. And
Bill
then
Huskamp.
last up, Bill Huskamp. All right, let's see what Bill Huskamp has. Woo, lots of notes. Lots and lots of notes. Excuse me. Exhaust is at 102. Transfers are at 125. Intake, 73 degrees. It's got a carburetor from a steel 038, and it has an 032 piston. Of course, it has a muffler mod. For the intake filter and everything, that's for a scooter that he got off of Amazon or something. The 031 piston ended up coming so close that he had to use washers on the spark plug. Yeah, he's got a lot of notes here, but I can't read them all. So, but yeah, he had used 2 crush washers on the spark plug. That's why you see on that top cover right there, it's got a hole in it because it was hitting the top cover.
Benjamin Schroeder.
Almost left 2 of them out. Next up, Ben Schroeder. Let's have a look at his. Okay, it's a Husqvarna 51, so it has a 45 millimeter cylinder on it. Exhaust is at 98, transfers at 115, and the intake is at 70. No machine work was done whatsoever. Minimal grinding on the exhaust and the transfers. The transfers were only raised on the intake side. So just a little bump there on the intake side. Has a timing advance and a muffler mod. And it was assembled without a base gasket. So there's Ben Schroeder's. And lastly, AJ Huff.
AJ
We kept
Hugh.
saying Hugh. We didn't know until I read this, and it says Huff. AJ Huff. It's an OE Husqvarna 55 cylinder, so again, 46 millimeter. Original Walbro carb that came on it. $6 China piston kit. Muffler ported with a junk weed eater shaft. And reused carb and exhaust gaskets. Exhaust is at 102.1 degrees. Intake at 82 degrees. Transfers at 121. So blowdown is at 19 degrees. Squish is 17 thousandths of an inch. It's only the second saw he's ever ported. A lot of help from people smarter than me and YouTube University. So those, now we can say that's all the saws. I had left those last 2 out and created this whole video and uploaded it to YouTube and realized, oh crap, I left 2 of the saws out. I'm glad I caught that. I didn't want to leave anybody out. Also go back to the wild build from Nick English, Bama Performance Saws. His wild build, right? 85 degrees on the intake, 126 on the exhaust, and 126 on the transfers, 97 on the exhaust. 85 intake, 126 transfers, 97 on the exhaust. The fingers, he put in finger ports. They had the same opening as the other transfers. Both intake and the exhaust was widened. He says he's got a low tension ring. Okay, so he must have done something to that ring to remove some of the tension from it. And a lightened 028 steel piston. The windows on that were opened up as well. All right, so yeah, I didn't have that info whenever I created the first portion of it. So his number 2 port job, the Nick English, is the more wild, right? And the number 1 is the more basic build. And so there it is. That's all of them now. Get what you can, glean what information you can off of this video for whenever in the future you are going to be making your guesses and everything. And I guess right now I'll just go ahead and put in the graphic that I've been working on for the bracketology. It won't be an actual bracket race, because whenever you say brackets, what that tends to imply is that it's an elimination type thing. If you lose to this guy, you're eliminated. You don't go further. I will be using time. But it looks good to have the bracket, and there you have it. So, but more on that. No need to ask me. Just be patient. The videos will be coming out, and you will get your opportunity to make guesses on who you think is going to place, where they're going to place, and stuff like that. And if somebody can guess all 27 in the correct order, then you will win my 592 XP. I feel pretty confident that nobody's going to guess the right order. That's why I don't mind putting my 592 XP up on the chopping block. But hey, if somebody gets it, it'll be sheer luck, and you'll get a 592 XP. But that video will come out tomorrow. Later.